She was born in 1488 Del Reckoning, on the night of the battle known as the Assault of the Sword Coast. Jindia Malarn and her demonic armies laid siege to Gauntlegrim in the echoing halls of the dwarven city as spells split the dark and warriors fought to hold the line. Somewhere in the heart of that chaos, Breezy Do'Urden brought her child into the world, and a powerful birthing ritual helped turn the tide of the battle raging all around her. At that time, Drizzt had stepped beyond the mortal coil itself, walking in a place between life and death, a state achieved through the teachings of Grandmaster Kain. To Catti-brie and all the companions, he was gone, yet his absence carried its own weight into the name this child would bear. Brianel Zaharina Do'Urden, a name drawn from two grandfathers who had shaped the fate of kingdoms, Brunner Battlehammer, the unshakable king of Gauntlegrim, and Zaknafein Do'Urden, the greatest weapons master Minzoberranzan had ever known. Though the world would know her as Drizzt's daughter, Breezy rejected the notion that blood alone could define her. She grew up surrounded by tales of dragon slayings, political upheavals, heroes, and kings. She understood that the deeds of others, even those she loved most, belonged to them. The foundation of her own life and deeds would have to be her own. She would make her own way, she would claim her own victories, and she would stand in no one else's shadow. Welcome to the Drow Historian. Today's video explores the daughter of Drizzt and Catti-brie, and it contains just about every spoiler you can think of for The Finest Edge of Twilight. I highly recommend saving this video for later and reading or listening to the new book before watching it. There has been a lot of conflicting information based on the official artwork of Breezy. Now we have a definitive novel that describes her with gray skin, lighter than Drizzt, with pink highlights, auburn red hair like Catti-brie, with some of it turning to white as she's gotten older, and purple eyes a shade deeper than her father. The images I create moving forward will adhere to those descriptions by the author, even where other sources or cover art show something different. With that out of the way, let's explore the story of Breezy Do'Urden. In 1490 DR, when Breezy was only 2 years old, Drizzt brought her to the monastery of the Yellow Rose in Damara as he finished his training under Grandmaster Kain. The monastery offered discipline forged through repetition, endurance, and self-denial. Here, Breezy was raised under the care of Grandmaster of Flowers Sivan, beginning her formal training at just 4 years old in the way of the open palm. The open palm demanded control of one's own emotions, one's movements, and one's presence in battle. Breezy excelled at its forms while resisting its restraint. Her mind wandered toward the unconventional, toward edges of the map the Order had no interest in charting. For years she lived between two worlds. Her days in the monastery were rigid and structured, while her visits to Gauntlegrim and Longsaddle placed her under the tutelage of her parents and their companions. From Drizzt and Wulfgar, she learned the art of the blade and unarmed combat. From Catti-brie and Penelope Harpel, she studied wizardry and minor clerical magic. These breaks from monastic life gave her glimpses of other ways to fight and to live. By 1505 DR, Breezy had turned to mysterious study in the monastery's library, teaching herself the way of shadow. The tradition was foreign to the monks of St. Solar's, relying on stealth, deception, and striking from places unseen. That same year, she rode with King Brunner's caravan from Luskan to Icewind Dale, carrying the primordial essence of Maegera for the final teleportation gate. Sos Umtu Be'enri's agents had disguised as trusted dwarf drivers through powerful illusion magic. When a Null army struck the caravan from outside as cover, the real attack came from within. The agents murdered the real drivers, seized the coffer holding the essence, and fled into the mountains on conjured mounts. Breezy, alone inside the armored wagon, witnessed all of it and gave chase. She used the way of shadow to close ground no runner could have covered, tracked the agents to a hidden cave, and shadow stepped silently inside. She found herself standing undetected directly behind one of the Drow women, and without hesitation she grabbed the woman's own loaded hand crossbow, pressed it to the base of her skull, and fired. The bolt carried sleeping poison. She had only meant to drop her. The wound looked mortal, and Breezy carried the uncertainty of what she had actually done long after she recovered the coffer and escaped with Guinevere's help. The victory left her unsettled, but it proved to her that her path beyond the open palm was worth following. Her time in Icewind Dale brought another formative experience, a Yeti hunt with her uncle Wulfgar. The brutal cold and the raw challenge of hunting a deadly predator taught her the value of adaptation. Every fight was a puzzle, and each one demanded its own answer. 4 years later, she challenged her longtime peer Gregory Antowine for the title of Master of Dragons. She lost. With that loss came expulsion from the monastery, a deliberate choice rather than a punishment. Grandmaster Sivan had already reached the conclusion herself, and Jarlaxle's counsel confirmed what she had seen. Breezy would reach her potential only beyond the Order's walls. Sivan, knowing this to be true, set her free. Jarlaxle's interest in Breezy was personal. He thought of her as a daughter, though in his own way. Where her parents hoped she might walk a noble path, Jarlaxle valued her unpredictability, her hunger for new skills, and her refusal to be bound by tradition. She in turn saw in him the one parental figure who truly understood her, someone who wanted her to become herself through her own potential. Through Jarlaxle's connections, she was placed under Lady Alvalgir of the Host Tower of the Arcane, a Shadowvar mage who had breathed the plane of shadow and walked out of the fall of the Shade Enclave. Alvalgir's primary craft was divination, and she schooled Breezy in a kind of magic Breezy had never considered, sensing the presence of fiends and undead, reading the glow of enchantment on objects and people, detecting poison and disease before it struck. The Shadowblade spell came later, offered as a reward for her dedicated study. In Caladay, she trained with the Avondrow wizard Alifero, who introduced her to the art of blade singing, blending swordplay and spellcraft into one. She took these disciplines and wove them together into something entirely her own. By 1509, she returned to Gauntlegrim to forge a weapon that would unify everything she had learned. In the Forge Heart with Soliardis, Zachnephane's retired blade in hand, and Penelope Harple's spell-storing ring charged with Alifero's Shadow Dweomer, she descended to the lava and spoke to Megera. What the primordial sent in answer was a fire elemental, vast and crushing, a test made of flame and stone. Breezy fought it to its end, drove her blade through its skull, and broke her leg when the creature fell. From the depths of the forge, Megera declared her worthy. Penelope's ring was consumed in the creation, its stored magic unbound by the primordial and reforged into something permanent. When Breezy emerged, a new weapon waited on her finger, a ring bearing a flat disk of shadow and flame, a sword called into being at a word. She named it Solsiker, the Chaldean word for twilight, the finest edge of twilight. In 1510, Jarlaxle offered her a place in Bregan d'Aerth. Her first mission sent her south to Westbridge, to the Tower of Ephron the Twisted, with orders to gather information on a magical cloak suited to her shadow skills. It was her first step into the world as a Breezy Do'Urden, operative, shadow dancer, and mercenary in her own right. Breezy's journals, begun in 1508 DR, are a dialogue with herself, a place where she tests her convictions and measures the worth of the lessons she's learned. Like her father before her, she uses writing to sort her thoughts. Where Drizzt wrote about the nature of good and evil, Breezy writes about the tension between freedom and restraint, joy and discipline, and the balance between curiosity and commitment. To Breezy, Jarlaxle is the one parental figure who leaves her free to choose her own life. Her father and mother teach by example and through discipline. Jarlaxle teaches through opportunity. He offers guidance and leaves its outcome to her, trusting her to choose her own road and sometimes to stumble on it. This philosophy aligns with her own embrace of many ways to fight, live, and think. She writes, "Life is a great feast to me, and I will not choose one dish and eat it to the end. She wields a monk's precision and a blade singer's flourish as one craft, drawing on divine magic one moment and striking from the shadows the next. Every skill she learns feeds into the whole, making her a more unpredictable and dangerous opponent. Her journeys to Icewind Dale gave her another defining principle. Perspective holds as much value as strength. When King Brunor's offer to place the magical gate in 10 towns was refused, she understood at once that some people prize their freedom to face hardship on their own terms above any promise of safety. Whether because of culture or geography, need or tradition, religion or upbringing, people see the world differently. Perspective, she writes, is the difference between a fight avoided and a fight won. In this, she mirrors Jarlaxle's adaptability while tempering it with her parents' sense of purpose. Jarlaxle might change course to siege advantage. Breezy changes course to reach what she believes is right. That distinction matters to her, and it may be the one thing that separates her from Jarlaxle. For Breezy, the measure of success lies in the freedom to pursue whatever path calls to her next, and in the trust in herself to make something of it. With Solsiker newly forged and her formal training complete, Breezy became a fully fledged Breagundi Aerith operative. To learn the information Jarlaxle had sent her to find, she would seek out Ephron the Twisted, the half-tiefling warlock son of Dahlia Sinfell, living just outside Westbridge. What Jarlaxle had not told Breezy was his deeper suspicion that Dahlia herself was nearby. Before reaching Ephron's tower, Dahlia's vampire spawn attacked her camp on the road, killing her horse and forcing Breezy to destroy the pack alone in the dark. She arrived at Ephron's tower the next morning, still covered in blood. The meeting with Ephron was interrupted when Dahlia herself entered through a window. The woman who once tried to kill her father and left him for dead had become something far worse, a vampire. She descended on Breezy without hesitation. Breezy's speed and shadow magic kept her alive, though Dahlia's strength overwhelmed her. The confrontation was interrupted when Artemis Entrere stepped from the shadows. He had brought Kozaz's needle, Dahlia's own tri-staff, long thought lost, and the two fought at length in a brutal exchange of sword, dagger, and crackling lightning. Entrere drove a cleaving blow through Dahlia's collarbone, but the vampire dissolved into a cloud of gas and slipped through a crack in the wall before he could finish it. Jarlaxle had made his way to Dahlia's manor ahead of the others and met the wounded vampire before the group arrived. By the time Breezy, Entrere, and Ephron reached Mont's Dorcray, the bargain was already struck. Dahlia would stop killing and serve as an informant for Breagundi Aerith. It was the kind of choice Breezy had always known Jarlaxle to make. Advantage over justice. She held her tongue then, though the decision festered. To her, a predator allowed to walk free remained a danger deferred. Not long after, she rode alone to Dahlia's castle. Inside, she found the vampire preparing to feed on Keely, a young woman from Waterdeep in the final stages of being turned into a vampire spawn. Breezy cut the weakened Dahlia down and beheaded her with Solsiker. She freed Keely from the manor, then set fire to the halls. The act defied Jarlaxle's will and rejected the bargain he had struck. She carried no regret for it. Dahlia's death served a single purpose, the ending of a threat, an act of judgment taken when those in power did nothing. It was a choice that defined her as much as any training, weapon, or title. She could work for Jarlaxle, learn from him, even trust him, while staying true to her own moral judgment. Breezy Do'Urden is a paradox in motion, a product of legacy who refuses to be defined by it. Her bloodline carries the names of kings, heroes, and legends, and her life has been a conscious departure from the idea that greatness must be inherited. She has shaped herself through discipline and defiance equally, blending the structured training of the Monastery of the Yellow Rose with the unorthodox teachings of mages, warriors, and rogues across the wide spectrum of teachers available to her. Jarlaxle's hand is visible in her story. present as the one parental figure willing to step back and let her take her own shape. He is both her greatest supporter and her sharpest test, offering opportunities that demand she decide for herself who she will be. In joining Bregan D'Airth, she stepped into his world, one of shifting loyalties, dangerous bargains, and calculated risks. In killing Dahlia, she proved she could walk in it while holding to her own moral compass. Her journals reveal a restless, adaptive mind, someone who views the world as a feast to be sampled in its entirety, who keeps every path open. Beneath that hunger for experience runs a constant, the belief that freedom is worth more than safety and that action matters more than title or allegiance. In the tapestry of the Legend of Drizzt, Breezy stands as a modern archetype, the self-made hero who honors her past while staying free of it, who can learn from a master while remaining herself, and who understands that the cost of living by your own judgment is the willingness to bear its consequences. Her name may forever be linked to Drizzt in the minds of others, yet in her own words, and in the choices she makes, Breezy Do'Urden is and will remain her own. If you're enjoying these videos and have the means, consider supporting the channel on Patreon, where you'll get 2 monthly bonus podcasts, D&D stat blocks for all of our favorite legendary characters and weapons, and you'll be helping me continue exploring the lore of the Legend of Drizzt every week. If you want to know more about Drizzt himself, check out my video, The Complete Guide to Drizzt Do'Urden. And if you want to learn more about the mysterious Jarlaxle, check out my video on Bregan D'Airth, They Put the Men in Menzoberranzan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next week for more lore from the Forgotten Realms and the Legend of Drizzt.